A man finds himself on the run for his life across parallel universes. In Dark Matter, that's the book I'm reviewing on this episode of SFF 180. Hello again, everyone. Thomas here, your host as always. Thank you for joining me. The many worlds hypothesis of quantum physics had been kicking around science fiction for years and years and years before Blake Crouch tapped into it as the premise to Dark Matter. Crouch's approach, however, is as far from hard science fiction as it could hope to be, with his staccato writing, his frenetic prose, favoring an abundance of single-sentence paragraphs to keep the story's pacing never less than breakneck. Crouch feels less inspired by science fiction's luminaries than by that master of disposable bestseller product, James Patterson. Dark Matter has a number of clever touches, and I'd be lying if I said Crouch hasn't got a great handle on writing the ideal airport novel. The hook is solid. A man displaced in the multiverse must get back to his own timeline and family. And the story reads exactly like a movie, an easy-to-grasp, high-concept thriller that feels like It's a Wonderful Life, as written and directed by Christopher Nolan. SF purists, wanting the science to be treated with a bit more detail and less as hand-wavium to get the action going, will probably bristle at the slick superficiality of it all. And by the way, for this reason, I would still consider Andy Weir to be the superior practitioner of this type of book. But readers from the I just want to be entertained school will be right on board. Jason Desson could have made world-changing breakthroughs as a theoretical physicist, but at a key moment in his life he made a decision to settle down and marry his pregnant girlfriend Daniela, an artist of great promise. Now, decades later, with a teenage son, Jason and Daniela have content but routine lives in Chicago. Once the rising physics star, who could have gone on to publish revolutionary research, Jason now teaches undergrads. Happy with his family, but still haunted by roads not taken. There is universal relatability here. All of us can, and probably do, think back on our early adulthood, wondering how different things might have been if only we had opened door number 2, or number 3, or number 4, instead of door number 1, right? I mean, in my own 20s, I think back, and I can only see foolish choices. But, perhaps much of that is a natural tendency to be way too self-critical, because as a character here points out, poor choices are learning experiences and opportunities for growth. But what if we were given the chance to unmake a distant regretted decision? Or, as Dark Matter proposes, what if such a decision was forced on us? Walking home from meeting an old friend and former college roommate who has gone on to enjoy the professional acclaim that he walked away from, Jason is suddenly accosted on the street by an armed masked man who forces him to drive to a remote location at the edge of the city. Now, because Crouch is not exactly subtle about underscoring his themes with a massive highlighter, we immediately know that Jason's assailant is a version of himself from an alternate timeline. Jason 2 forces Jason to swap clothing, and then knocks Jason out with an ampule full of a mystery drug. Jason awakens in Jason 2's Chicago, where that version of himself went on not only to solve multiple intractable problems in quantum physics, but to build an actual gate to access the multiverses. But despite his success, Jason 2 always regretted not settling down with Daniela, and has decided simply to travel to a timeline in which he did, and replace himself there. The rest of the story involves Jason's desperate, Hitchcockian man-on-the-run attempts to return to his own world and reunite with his family, but how to find it amongst an infinity of branching timelines. His travels, many of which are in the company of a sympathetic colleague from Jason 2's timeline, allow the book a number of striking moments. Some images and scenes are genuinely haunting, and Crouch builds upon the conflict by adding complications arising directly from Jason's own search, staying faithful to his premise. The climax and denouement are satisfying, especially in the way Crouch finishes on a decision that must be resolved only in our imaginations. But for all the story's excitement, there's a shallowness to it that's unfortunate. Occasionally, pure contrivance takes over if Crouch needs to get the story going where he wants it to go quickly. The plot sometimes feels less like it's moving forward than being moved forward, if you take my meaning. And to put it bluntly, Jason's family are essentially reduced to a prize for Jason's ability to solve all of his problems correctly. I mean, there's entertainment value here to burn, but little depth or meaning beyond obvious declarations that choices and the consequences we live with from those choices are what shape our identity and mold our character. Reviewing Dark Matter now a few years after its release, I have the opportunity to take note of the new Michelle Yeoh film, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and how it does everything Dark Matter does, but with immeasurably more humor, creativity, and heart. The choice, of course, is all yours. And that is all I have time for on this episode of SFF 180. Remember, the most important thing, these are reviews. You are not always going to agree with me, but if you enjoyed watching, please hit that like button, share the video far and wide with all of your SFF reading friends, and above all, please subscribe if you have not done so. That is how the channel grows. You can also support the channel at my TeePublic store and at my Patreon, where recruits into Wink's army occasionally get early access to some of my videos, if I finish the videos early enough. But what I use the Patreon money for is to pay Matt Olson, my wonderfully gifted and talented channel artist who does all of my great thumbnails for me, so that extra help, very much appreciated. Thank you all so much for that sacrifice, and I want to thank all the rest of you for being the very best viewers in all of BookTube. So until I see all of you next time, stay safe and healthy, and happy reading.